All right, hey guys, so today we're going to be working with proportions and word problems. So we're going to learn how to solve these word problems using proportions. So real quick, let's just kind of go over what a proportion is. So proportion is an equation that expresses two equivalent ratios. So remember, if it's equivalent, that means that we're trying to make them equal to each other. And to do that, we're going to use cross multiplication. Remember that first step, we're going to multiply diagonally, and the second step means that we're going to divide by the variable. Okay, so we're going to keep that in mind as we read through these first couple of problems. Okay, so this first problem. So Jeremy drove his motorcycle 120 miles in 3 hours. At this rate, how many miles can he drive in 5 hours? Okay, so we know that we're going to be setting up a proportion, which means we're going to be setting up some ratios. Okay, so let's just look for that first ratio, that first rate that we can find. So Jeremy drove his motorcycle 120 miles in 3 hours. So our first rate is going to be miles and hours. So we have 120 miles, and we're going to be comparing that to 3 hours. Okay, so at this rate, how many miles can he drive in 5 hours? So we're looking for, do an open circle, how many miles can he drive in 5 hours? So we're going to fill in what we know. We have the hours, so we're going to keep the labels the same. So notice how I have miles on top. That means miles will be on top here. And if I have hours on bottom, that also means that you'll have hours on bottom. Okay, so it's an easy way to kind of keep them lined up. So now we're going to fill in the part that we know. We do not have anything for how many miles. He can drive in 5 hours. So we can write that 5 down in the hours because that's what that represents. And we don't know the miles, so we're going to use our variables and we're going to use an x. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cross multiply. This looks super familiar to what we've done with proportions so far. Only difference is now we have a couple of labels, which is perfectly fine. We can just kind of ignore those as we solve. So we're going to multiply our 3 times our x, which is going to give us 3x. And I'm going to do my 5 times my 120, and that is going to give me 600. So 600 equals 3x. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write this back up here just to make this a little bit easier to solve so we have some more space. So we have 600 equals 3x. Okay. So I multiply diagonally. My second step is to divide by the variable. So we're going to divide by the number by the variable. So remember that our fraction bar also means division. So we're going to divide by 3 and divide by 3. So I'm going to bring my x straight down, brought my equal sign straight down. 600 divided by 3 equals 200. So 200 equals x. And what was x? What did that represent? Miles. So because it's a word problem, we're going to make sure to put our labels. So that means 200 miles. So when we're doing word problems, we're just kind of matching. All right. So our next problem. If 1 out of 12 students at a school share a locker, how many share a locker in a school of 456 students? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's find our first ratio. So the first one that we can make is 1 out of 12. So we have 1 out of 12. Okay, so we have 1, and then we have our total of 12 students, and I'm just going to abbreviate that. Okay, 1 out of 12 students share a locker at a school. So now we're looking for how many share a locker in a school of 456 students. So again, because we had students on the bottom in the first one, we're going to have students on the bottom here. Okay, so we're going to keep those the same. So how many share? So we have 456, 456, and we don't know how many share. Okay, again, this looks super familiar. This we know how to solve for. So we're going to do 12 times x. So it's going to give me 12x. And 1 times 456. 456. Once again, I have run out of room, so we're going to come up here just to keep it nice and neat. Okay. All right. So now we're going to divide by the number by the variable. So we're going to divide by 12 divided by 12. This guy cancels out. So 456 divided by 12 equals 38. 38 equals x. But what did that x represent? The number that's shared. So we're going to say 38 students. And just so we're nice and clear, we'll share a locker. We'll share a locker. Okay. All right. Moving right along. All right, so Sabrina jogged 2 miles in 30 minutes. Okay, so she jogged 2 miles in 30 minutes. At this rate, how far would she jog in 90 minutes? Okay, so the first one that I can make, we know that we're going to be comparing miles to minutes. Miles to minutes. Okay, so the first one I can make, the first one that goes together, is 2 miles and 30 minutes. So we have 2 miles and 30 minutes. Awesome. But since I'm making a proportion, I have to have another, I have to finish up this equation. So at this rate, how far would she jog in 90 minutes? So we want to know how far she jogs in 90 minutes. Again, we're going to keep our labels the same. So that means that miles will be on top, minutes will be on the bottom. And it gives us 90 minutes, so we can fill that in. I don't have miles, so I'll put my x. And now I can just cross multiply. So we have 30 times x. So 30x. And then we're going to have 90 times 2. And 90 times 2 is going to give me 180. Okay? I can divide by 30. Divide by 30. These two cancel. 180 divided by 30 is going to leave me with 6 equals, bring my x straight down, 6 equals x. X, what did x represent? Miles. So we would make sure to use our label, 6 miles. Okay. So while resting, a human takes in about 5 liters of air in 30 seconds. We want to be looking at what we're going to be comparing. At this rate, how many liters of air would someone take in during 150 seconds? So we are going to find our first one. The first one we're going to be looking at 5 liters of air in 30 seconds. That's the first comparison. So we have liters to seconds. Okay, liters to seconds. And we have 5 liters and 30 seconds. Okay? Okay, so then it says at this rate, how many liters? So we want to know how many liters. Here's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find how many liters. And remember, we're going to keep our labels the same. So I like to label first because it helps me figure out what goes where. How many liters of air would someone take in during 150 seconds? So it gives us the 150 seconds, so we can go ahead and write that in. I don't know how many liters, that's what I'm trying to find. And now we're going to cross multiply. 30 times x would give us 30x. 150 times 5 is going to give us 750. When I divide by 30, divide by 30, those cancel, bring my x straight down. 750 divided by 30 equals 25. So 25 equals x. Again, what does x mean? What were we looking for? We were looking for liters. So we would write 25 liters. So that means that 25 liters of air would be what somebody took in 150 seconds. So in 150 seconds, a human might take in 25 liters of air. Kind of cool. All right. And then the last one. Out of 30 students surveyed, 17 have a dog. Based on these results, how many of the 300 students in the school have a dog? Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different, so we're going to have to make sure to really look at this, okay? So it says out of 30 students. So that means out of the total of 30 students, 17 have a dog. So part of them have a dog out of the total. So I'm going to put my students on the bottom because that was the total. And the part of them that have a dog on top. So that means 17 and 30. So 17 out of 30 students have a dog. Okay? So that also means that I'm going to be using the same labels over here. So I would have dog over here and students over here. Okay. So based on these results, so based on the fact that 17 out of 30 have a dog, how many out of the 300 students in the school, so how many out of the total of 300 would have a dog? So we have 300 students. We don't know about the dogs, so now we can cross multiply. So we would do 30 times x, and that again would give us 30x. Move this up a little. And then we have 300 times 17, and that's going to give us 5,100. Divide by 30, divide by 30, cancels. 5,100 divided by 30 is going to give us 170. So 170 equals x. Well, what does x represent? X represents the number of people that have dogs. So 170 students have dogs.